So why don't we move on to group chat and I think dig in really deep on the GS8 and kind of talk about what this means in a bigger way for Samsung. So first, Chris, just tell us about the Galaxy S8 and the S8 Plus. That's the larger one.
Right. So I'm going to turn on hands-on voice really quick. Hey guys, so let's talk about the Galaxy S8 and the S8 Plus. We're looking, in the US at least, at a Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 chipset with 4 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigabytes of internal storage. You can upgrade that with a micro SD card up to 256 gigs. You can technically, you'll be able to get bigger cards in the future, but Samsung has only certified these devices for 256 gigs at this point. Also, feel free, I feel compelled to point out, if you don't live in the US, you're probably going to get a device with an octa-core Exynos chipset. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out because the Exynos that we got in the Galaxy S7 international model last year had a couple advantages in terms of battery life and speed that we didn't get in the 820 version of the Galaxy S7 last year, so hopefully that gap has been reduced. We do have a stunning design. It's got an infinity display, which means you've got basically no bezel on the left and right, and just the faintest hint of bezel on the top and bottom. The Galaxy S8 is the smaller of the two with its 5.8-inch screen running at Quad HD+. The numbers tied to which escape me at the moment. The Galaxy S8 Plus has a 6.2-inch display, which feels stunning. I am not a small phone person, but I was hesitant, obviously, kind of going into this with all the rumors talking about how big the screen was. And it feels, it's just about the same size as an iPhone 7 Plus. It's a little narrower in each dimension, but it feels incredible. One thing to point out, we're not getting huge increases in performance in the camera. It's a 12-megapixel dual-pixel camera, very similar to what we got with the Galaxy S7. There have been some improvements to processing made, so you get slightly better color and clarity throughout, but we'll obviously see how that goes. The S8 also has a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, which is the same as the S7 last year. Also really curious to see how that works out because we're working with a more powerful chipset and a bigger display. I am skeptical. The S8 Plus has a 3,500 milliamp hour battery, actually, which is a hair smaller than the Edge from last year. The Edge, by the way, doesn't exist anymore because both devices have those curved edge displays. And that's as much of the voice that I want to do right now.
Nice job.
I always think it's kind of fun to watch somebody turn that on because it's such like a great learned skill to just like be able to go, oh, we're in hands-on mode, and I have to like talk nonstop and like do it. It's also a thing that I get kind of rusty at, and every time we go to CES and I have to like relearn it because I haven't done like a proper hands-on in a while.
Yeah, I don't consider myself great at it, but I was so much worse before you guys started making me do videos for everything.
All right, so
yes,
let's start breaking some of that down because there's a whole bunch of things going on there. If I'm honest, Dana, you can ask questions about this if you like.
Okay.
I'm not particularly concerned with the specs part. I think we're at a place with flagship phones where like they all kind of perform fine.
I agree.
Nobody's getting like huge jumps. They all more or less use the same chipset. They all more or less ship with the same amount of RAM. Really, the biggest problem is whether or not they're adding a bunch of customizations to the OS that are going to kind of drag things down. And it seems like TouchWiz is a little bit lighter this time around.
It feels more mature, I'd say. So you'll see a couple of trends that kind of pop up with other device makers kind of appear in the S8. So for example, the app, like the app button, the app launcher, doesn't really exist. You swipe up sort of pixel style to access your applications. The theme, the icons, the fonts, all feel a little more polished. They feel a little more grown up. They make me feel a little less like TouchWiz is this like annoying toy that you stick in a drawer because you never want to use. And more of this thing where, is it perfect for everybody? No, but it's close enough for most people that I would certainly suffer through it and wouldn't have much trouble. Terrence, you're a stock guy, as am I. I think if you put in some time, like you actually wouldn't dislike this very much.
So I watched the hands-on with it, and I will say that TouchWiz has improved dramatically. It no longer looks like a toy.
It's not a hole. It used to just be like a hole of despair.
Yeah.
And it's not that.
Well, I think for me, part of the issue was the bizarre design choices they made that made it look like it wasn't a smartphone, but like a VTech fake phone you'd give to a 3-year-old.
Like what? I I've spent maybe a little more time with this, but I didn't get that impression. I would love to. Like, what do you think feels like toyish about it?
So I think, well, the newer version doesn't have that. To be clear.
Okay.
So this was always my feeling about TouchWiz in the past. Is it was always a little bit too bright, always a little bit too many different colors. These weird, like unnecessary curves to things.
A little cartoonish.
Yeah, like not a little cartoonish, super cartoonish.
Yeah,
like it looked like somebody was making a phone based on Dora the Explorer and not on Android.
Their earlier versions definitely had a distinct like Fisher-Price vibe going on.
The new one seems a little bit cleaner, a little bit more simple, and like you said, a little bit more grown up. It still maintains the squircles, which
I love.
I'm not a fan of. I don't know how you feel about the squircles, Dana.
So did you hate the Zune as well?
I've never thought to think about squircles.
You've never thought to think about the squircles?
No.
One of my favorite sentences ever. Oh, that's going in the list of wonderful Dana quotes. I didn't hate the Zune, but I liked the Zune hardware better than I liked a lot of the Zune software.
Fair. All right.
Although the Zune HD, they started doing that like weird other design. They didn't have
Metro back in the day, like pre-Windows Phone.
Yeah,
that was fun. Those were the days.
Yeah, that was a little bit different. So I mean, and Ubuntu, which I was a big fan of and a dedicated user of for many years, they moved to squircles, and it was a thing that I did not like. So I mean, it's not that I haven't seen them before. But it's just like I don't pick a square or a circle. Just choose one. The weird in between thing feels kind of childish and cartoonish to me, just like inherently by design.
Fair enough.
And also just too many weird colors and things. Just like there's so many like bright clashes of color in TouchWiz that I like find
so
bothersome.
I mean, I'd ask this question of Samsung, but also Lenovo now and HTC, but these companies that are either based in Asia or have parent companies based in Asia. Do you think part of the problem with software design is that they're designing for two very different markets?
Yeah, there's a distinct cultural shift when you're designing for an Asia versus a like Western Hemisphere kind of thing.
Right. I mean, in conversations with Richard Lai, our Hong Kong editor, it seems to be that skins like this that we frequently just sort of dismiss so often here in the States are actually pretty commonplace and maybe even a boon in the Asian market.
Yeah.
And I do wonder to what extent that is a challenge for a company like Samsung. I mean, this was a global press event, right? It wasn't just us American journalists, but there were journalists flown in from as far-flung as Japan. And you need to build a phone that's going to satisfy everybody. And software, to begin with, seems to be an area where there are clear and very different preferences in different regions.
Yeah, that's why I think I kind of appreciate what they've done with the new TouchWiz, or whatever brand name they're calling it now.
Is it not called TouchWiz?
I had heard that they might be calling it something else. Like,
well, they never used the name during the event yesterday.
Yeah, but it sounds very Fisher-Price. Like, it feels very old school Samsung. So I'm not surprised that they wouldn't talk or give that interface a specific TouchWiz name. But for lack of anything else, I'm going to call it that.
Yeah.
You're right. Like, being able to build good software in general is a nightmare. And to build good software that sort of ticks the right number of boxes for widely different cultural groups is, I mean, it's got to be like goddamn impossible. But what I like about TouchWiz now is that you do sort of get the impression that they've made concessions to like the Asian market, for example. Like the traditional launcher doesn't quite exist the way it used to, which is on most Asian kind of spec devices, you'll just see an iPhone-style apps on all of your home screens, and that's kind of that, and that's fine. I do feel like in a lot of ways they listen to us specifically complain over the years about how bad and bloated and cartoonish and childish TouchWiz is, and dialed a lot of that down for our benefit. Because, I mean, like, obviously that's what I like. I feel good about it. I do also think there's enough there as far as bolt-on Samsung stuff. Like, a Bixby Home is a very good example of that. It kind of apes like the Google Now home screen where you swipe to the right from your home screen. You've got all of your suggestions and, like, news items and stuff like that. But in general, I think they've done a pretty good job kind of balancing out those cultural concerns. Obviously, we didn't get a ton of time with TouchWiz. I'd love to kind of see how this works out even more. But I think at this point, it's about as good as they could do.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. It seems like they've found a way to kind of balance their inclination, and this does seem kind of a running theme in a lot of like Asian companies' designs. It's a lot of soft edges, it's a lot of roundness, but they've also paired that with sort of the simplified design choices that you're seeing on Android now, that you see on the newer versions of iOS. So it's a lot flatter. It's not as much what is it? Skeuomorphism is the word I'm looking for. You know, nobody's touching your screen and seeing ripples of water anymore.
That's a word I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, well, because everybody's moved away from
it. We haven't had to get riled up about that in forever.
Yeah. So they've moved away from that stuff, which is, I think, a good thing, and kind of striking that balance between the two. I will reserve judgment until I get my hands on it to actually like see it fully. I'm just going into it very skeptical.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think the one kind of final note we'll leave with the interface is that you can theme the hell out of this thing. Yeah. So there are very specific themes in the store kind of already, even in our really brief hands-on time, that make this thing feel infinitely more palatable to certain cultures. So like there's very cutesy stuff for like Japan and Korea. So they've, by removing the onus on Samsung itself to kind of cook up one single interface for everybody and letting anyone basically like MySpace their phone for better or worse.
Oh God.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen some real stinkers. Like they've, I think, really neatly sidestepped some of the cultural concerns.
So before we move on from design, though, I wanted to talk about the physical design of the phone.
Look at him.
He's getting real excited about this.
It's real good. Guys, it's real good.
So the Edge no longer exists.
There is no specific Edge phone anymore.
Because the S8 and the S8 Plus
are both Edges.
Basically the Edge.
Exactly.
It's got the same curved screen around the sides. I've got to say, it is the best looking phone that Samsung has built in a long, long time.
I think it's the best looking phone out there right now.
I might agree with you.
Which color in person was your favorite, V?
See, that's tough because I loved the black Galaxy Note, that really like dark, light sucking black. They've got a silver model as well, which is just like chromed out. And I feel like kind of a jerk for wanting the blingiest possible Galaxy S8, but I kind of want the blingiest possible Galaxy S8.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is V. Velasco's third voice. You've heard the hands-on voice, the normal voice.
What would you call this voice?
Lusting after an inanimate object voice.
That's the gadget lust voice. All right, so what colors does it come in?
So there will be 5. I forget. So 3 are coming to the United States out of a total of 5. I forget which 3. There's black, silver, blue, orchid gray, and one other, which I forget at the moment.
So I'm pulling it up here because I need to know, because this is actually one thing I didn't catch yesterday. And
would this make a difference to you? Like, are you one of those people to whom color matters a lot?
It doesn't matter a lot. I'm perfectly happy with the like functional black, not fancy at all. Like, so, but I'm just kind of interested, like, especially when it's clear they've put so much effort into the design of it. When they've clearly thought so much about the appearance and the aesthetics, I want to know what their choices are to pair with it color-wise, because I think that also changes the way the device looks and feels. And unfortunately, their website is broken.
I was going to say, while you're looking at that, I just wanted to throw this out there. I've long held that HTC was like the king of smartphone design. Sorry, guys. Like,
I mean, I agree with you.
Like, I liked a lot of what the U Ultra did, specifically with regard to its look, but that was it. And Samsung has eaten their lunch basically on every level. Like, they're maybe not quite as dorky about like material science as HTC is, but like when you get an end result that looks as good as the S8 or the S8 Plus, like, what does it matter? Like, who cares how you coat your metal with glass or your glass with metal?
Yeah.
Like, just give me a good looking thing that won't break and I'm good.
And it's metal bodied, right? Or is it plastic?
Metal.
It is metal. Okay.
Well, okay. So there's like a metal rim around it, sort of like the basically, if you look at a Note 7 and imagine that, where you sort of got the glossy front and back, and then the metal rim around the side. That's what you got.
But is the back plate plastic?
No.
Okay. That was my
okay. Okay.
And we're long done with the fake leather.
Yes. Thank God.
You have a place for that in your heart?
I forget. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but if the Q1 has fake leather on it, just take my money. I'm going to throw my wallet at a screen.
Why not real leather?
This is the Engadget gadget porncast.
Yeah.
Today.
I mean, because I'm not gonna lie. The Moto X with like the proper leather backs, those were hot.
That Horween stuff was so good.
Not that Saffiano stuff on the second model.
No.
That like plain smooth texture.
I don't really mean leather back. I mean plastic bumps that were meant to resemble leather stitches.
Yes.
Which is totally different.
Yes.
So you're thinking like...
But I'm saying, why bother with the faux leather when you can have the real thing?
God,
it clearly works. I will never get rid of that phone. I'm never going to use it again, but I just want it.
They aged so well, too.
Yeah. It broke in like a nice boot.
Oh, God.
What? You're going to nerd out over leather right now.
I almost framed the Note 7 rather than give it back to Samsung, and I think you should probably frame that Moto X.
I might.
It's a beautiful piece.
So, by the way, in America, it's only coming in silver, gray, and black.
Which is fine. Like, the alternatives are blue and orchid gray, which...
Well, no, it's the orchid gray, the Arctic silver, and midnight black are coming. The black is actually pretty nice. It is that, like...
It's incredible.
It's that, like, disappear into it, like, black hole black.
Right.
Like, if you held this up, it would look like you photoshopped it in.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Actually, you know what? I just remember what the other color is. Maple gold.
Maple gold?
Two things that I never would have mashed together in my head. Samsung has just gone for. They actually, at the event, the swag that they give out, in addition to the Gear 360, which we have sitting here, is like a design book with interviews with Samsung staffers written by like someone who writes for the International New York Times and like actual publications, which is ethically strange and also fascinating. And the photos are real pretty.
I saw somebody posted that yesterday. I was like, that's really weird. It's like this giant coffee table book.
Yeah, it's sort of like that Apple design coffee table book, except with what I assume is way more bombast. Like, there are I kind of want to do a dramatic reading of some of this stuff because it's so over the top.
So I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm looking at all these. That maple gold is pretty hot.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
And I don't understand why it's not coming, because we got a gold S7 last year, and like that seemed to sell relatively well. If I'm wrong, someone please call me out.
So yeah.
But it's not gold.
It's not.
It's maple gold.
It's more of like it's like a metallic tan.
That's the maple.
Yeah.
Maple bacon.
Do we have to...
See, that's a better marketing name, I think. I would buy a bacon-colored phone.
A bacon-colored phone? I mean, we could get you a case for your phone that looks like bacon. How is that?
Didn't we?
No, because I don't want the white stripes on it, but like...
You just want that, like, well, uncooked or cooked bacon? Do you want that deep, like, red-brown, or do you want, like, that pale pink?
You can roll with it. You can run with this.
Okay.
And
do you guys remember that, like, little, like, air scent dispenser we had kicking around the office for a while that was bacon scented? Like, you'd plug it in the bottom of your phone and connect it to an app, and it would just, like, squirt out air that smelled like bacon?
No, I do not remember this.
Well, I just kind of assumed you took it.
Nope. I do not have this. I do not know what you're talking about.
We should get another one back into the office, though.
Just to make the whole office smell like
just to
bacon
make us all hangry all the time?
Yeah.
Enough bacon-scented things. Let's get back to the task at hand. Samsung Galaxy S8.
All right, fine.
I know. I'm going to go eat some bacon.
I want bacon now.
I know.
Sorry, guys.
So two other things I kind of wanted to quickly touch on before we kind of wrap this whole thing up. One of those is the inclusion of the AKG headphones. So one question I had that I couldn't get a clear answer on yesterday, is that a timed thing for like the first batch of S8s that get sold, or is that just in every box with S8 you're getting these like $100 AKG headphones? Do you know?
As I understand it, I don't have much more clarity on it than you, but from what it sounded like during my conversations with Samsung, those are just the pack-ins. Like, that's just what you get.
Which is bonkers.
Is it?
To be clear.
I mean, like, you've seen companies like even ZTE did some JBL pack-ins that were actually pretty good with like back in the day. So it's not unheard of.
It's not unheard of. I don't know. JBL makes good stuff. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like AKG is a name that carries a lot of cachet among a certain crowd.
I was going to say, I've never heard of it.
It's all very smart. I mean, so I've edited many phone reviews, and often the section on audio culminates in the same way. It's like, well, you know, it's okay, but you could just plug in a pair of headphones, and that's what you're going to do anyway.
Yeah.
So even if these are $100 headphones, I have to wonder about the R&D costs saved in not bothering to try and reinvent the wheel and make the audio setup here better than it could be or better than it realistically is going to be, and just going straight to the headphones, which people are going to use anyway, and make them good.
Well, one of the things that Samsung has always done pretty well, if you talk to like super nerdy people, is build audio chips. And it's a thing they've never really talked about much when marketing their phones for some reason. But the DAC that they put in their phones is generally of much higher quality than those that are going into their competitors. Apple has kind of seemed to start to catch up. But the early days of like the initial batch of like Galaxy S phones versus the iPhone, it was like no competition.
Apple does not look very good in this conversation because the sound coming out of the speaker here is not remarkable. And also, Apple is not doing anything right now to leverage its ownership of Beats. I mean, Apple could just, if it wanted to, throw Beats headphones in with the box, but it's not going to.
Yeah. And that would also be catering to a different audience, to be clear, as well.
But it'd be an improvement over what we get.
It's true. And I mean, it's not just about the speakers on the phone. Like, the speakers on the phones are only going to be so good. But it's that chip inside and how it's decoding the audio. And Apple always kind of, like, took a bit of a shortcut with it, whereas Samsung, who has a long history of making, like, quality audio gear, just went, well, we can repurpose this tiny, high-quality audio chip and put it in our things. And so when I would talk to, like, audiophiles and stuff, they'd be like, you know, if you're going to buy a digital music player, going back to the days of when you had a dedicated digital music player, or if you're going to buy a smartphone and you want to listen to music on it, buy a Samsung, because it's got a very flat, natural kind of response. It's not like going to distort. It's not pumping out too much bass. And you pair that with the AKG headphones, and AKG is a big name, especially in production circles. Like they make, I don't want to say the industry standard, but like bang for your buck industry standard studio monitors. Like if you're going to go out and buy headphones, you want to start recording and start working on music, one of the first companies people are going to tell you to go look to is AKG, because you can get some really solid studio monitors for like $55-$60 from them, which are surprisingly good for such a low cost.
Can we talk about what the best part of this whole AKG pack-in headphone deal is?
Please.
Just plug it in the headphone jack, yo.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
There is a headphone jack.
Which, by the way, like blows a hole in everyone else's argument. Like, this is an incredibly thin phone that's been manufactured to really insanely precise standards.
Yep.
And it's got a headphone jack. Like, yo, HTC, what's the deal? Like, Apple, Motorola. Like, there's no reason why you can't do this.
Nope. There's no reason. And, again, to be clear, I think that's kind of catering to people who like high-quality audio. I use Bluetooth headphones when I commute, but Bluetooth headphones are never going to sound as good as something being plugged directly into and getting that analog signal. Well, analog-ish signal. So, no, I think they have something else. They've kind of cornered the market on Android cameras at this point. Like, their cameras are always going to be better than everybody else's, it seems like.
I think the sensors that they go with are generally really, really good. To be fair, like, these are, like, they buy sensors from, like, Sony generally. Like, they're not always homebrew stuff.
But nobody is writing soliloquies about how good the Sony cameras are.
I heard a couple of soliloquies last night about how great the G6 is. Our review is not up yet. I actually really, really like the camera. I don't think in just like a straight shootout it beats a Samsung, but I think the flexibility it offers, like it all depends on what you're looking for, right? Like if you're coming into just like maybe the best point and shoot, I would have said Pixel before. I might say S8 now if I get to play with it more. But if you're the kind of person who has very precise needs, if you want to be able to, if you're like a vlogger, if you have like there are a lot of situations in which the G6 is kind of the superior camera experience, which is not a thing I ever thought I would say. I feel a little weird actually even right now.
Interesting. I don't know. Is there anything else we need to talk about the Galaxy S8? Anything we haven't touched on?
I mean, I think we ran through just about all
everything else is really going to have to wait until your review. The verdict on performance, battery life, camera quality.
I'm interested to see the battery life.
I'm really interested to see like the Connect Home stuff come together. Like, if anything, it gives me an excuse to go out and buy a bunch of connected home stuff. But like the ability to have
I mean, you can have the giant pile of connected home review unit stuff that's just been collecting dust.
What are you talking about?
I forgot.
Where is this pile?
It's sitting in a tote bag.
You guys suck.
In my dining room.
Oh, okay. So it's at your house.
Well, I've been meaning to bring it to the office, and I just keep forgetting. I've now come to the office like 3. I've put them by the door so that I don't forget.
And you've missed it 3 times.
And I've missed it 3 times. I will probably miss it a 4th time tomorrow.
Well, that's just peachy. But I mean, the ability to tie into not only Samsung's own stuff, like their fridge with the cameras inside, which is still a thing that I don't think society needs, but like, sure, whatever, like enjoy it, have a good time.
You do use Samsung.
Right. But the fact that you can also tie in smart things capable stuff, like there was a Hue bridge, like a Philips Hue bridge connected to our demo setup. So like you could tell Bixby to like turn your Hue down to 30%. Like that, in a way, it feels very reminiscent of what Apple's done with its own home app and HomeKit. But the breadth, I think, is what's very exciting. And to be able to just have that baked into the core and have that really be a big priority for Samsung is not a thing I expect going into it. And I'm really kind of stoked for it.
Would you just live in a Samsung home? Just like all Samsung appliances and Samsung everything, just so you can talk to Bixby and control your blinds?
And have a friend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's mostly the friend thing. But I mean, like, that's the point. If you've gone to the trouble of building out like a proper smart home, like you've probably pledged allegiance to
somebody.
Probably at this point more than likely Apple, because HomeKit, for all of its like weird little issues, is like a very, very solid, very good platform. But yeah, I would totally live in a Samsung house. Samsung, if you're listening to this, can you build me a house? Is that weird to ask?
I think there might be some ethical problems with that.
All right, what if I moved into the house for like a week?
Samsung does have a construction business in Korea, so maybe if you...
I'm officially pitching that story right here to you right now. Can I go to Korea and live in a Samsung house? I think that would be a fascinating story to go full bore Samsung, like Samsung health insurance, Samsung house. Go to work on the Samsung artillery range.
It would be a pretty interesting story. I also think it would be a pretty interesting story just in general if Samsung decided they were going to build an entire community of homes powered entirely by Samsung. Just like you move in and as part of your like rental package, you get a Galaxy S8 to control your home that also unlocks your door. And
see, that sounds terrifying, but realistically, how long before something like that happens?
6 months?
It's not far-fetched enough to be out of the realm of possibility.
No, it's not. Are you guys ready to kind of bring this to a close?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm S8'd out.
I think it's time for the wind down. This is where kind of take a breath, talk about what we've been doing in our downtime, recommend something to the listeners, whether that's something to watch, something to listen to. I'm going to start with you, Dana.
Uh-oh.
Because last week, at your insistence, we started this project where we were going to get you a little culture in class.
Class? I never said class.
I said class.
I'm classy. Go on.
And we gave you homework. And your homework last week was to watch Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And you did it. You made me want to pull my hair out. But you did it, and I'm very happy about it. And in the midst of that episode, we discovered that you also had not seen Jaws. Mm-hmm. And so your homework for this week was to go home and watch Jaws, which you did not do.
I didn't want to go home and watch Jaws. I would have done it last night maybe, but I was out late.
You were out late.
Yeah.
Were you out late at least having fun? You weren't like stuck somewhere trying to get home?
No, I was hanging out with my aunt.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So we can't talk Jaws this week because you didn't do your homework. What would you like to talk about? What have you been listening to, watching, reading? I have been listening to the podcast Missing Richard Simmons. And I've been listening to it fully aware of almost because of the controversy surrounding it. So to step back, this guy who was a frequent attendee at Richard Simmons' workout class in L.A., did this podcast, time of the 3rd anniversary, Richard Simmons basically dropping out of public life and disappearing. And even before I started listening, I had read about how kind of invasive it was, and it is invasive. I mean, spoiler alert, he stakes out in front of his home and knocks on his door. So I'm listening to it not so much because I recommend it to you guys and because I love it, but partly because I just want to be part of the conversation and be able to either, even if I don't like it, be able to talk about what I don't like about it. And I'm not done with it yet, but
I would second the idea that it's invasive, but also it's weird. It's told in the past tense as if he were dead, or as if it were an episode of Behind the Music.
Yeah.
But he's, as far as we all know,
very alive.
Is alive.
Yeah. I listened to the first couple of episodes. Like you, I'm a little bothered by some of the weird invasiveness. There's some like real ethical issues around the creation of it, but it is also very well done. Like, it's very compelling listening, right? I mean, like, it's not like you listen to it once and went, this is both invasive and terrible. There's clearly no reason to listen to it.
I like the parts that are like, it's a shame Richard Simmons dropped out of public life because this is why he was awesome. And then hearing people talk about why he was awesome.
Yeah.
That feels less invasive but equally interesting. I feel more uncomfortable with the parts where they are invading his privacy and then on air rationalizing why that's an okay thing to do.
Yeah. So if you have no qualms with the ethical parts of that, feel free to go listen to Missing Richard Simmons.
I feel like even if you have qualms, I mean, this is a debate we can have. I feel like even if you have qualms, you can listen.
Because it already exists. Yeah. Like, you're not stopping the creation of this product by not listening.
I'm not listening because I'm a voyeur and I'm that curious about what happened to Richard Simmons. I'm listening almost as a critique, as a critic of the very media industry I work in. And if there's this discussion going on about something messed up happening, I want to listen just so that I can, like, weigh in an informed way.
Fair enough. You might have just convinced me to go back and pick it up again.
Yeah.
V,
what do you want to tell the people to check out?
Man, this feels almost cliche because I feel like it's gotten really buzzy lately, but I'm all about, have you guys heard of the Adventure Zone?
Adventure Zone?
The Adventure Zone. It's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast hosted by three brothers, the McElroys, two of which were actually former like AOL clan members, right? Like they were joystick guys, like way back in the day. So basically, it's three brothers who live all over the country, and like their dad, just playing Dungeons and Dragons with each other, which sounds a little strange, but it's basically the exact opposite of everything Dana described about Missing Richard Simmons. Like, this is just pure, unadulterated, like, family level fun because they've got their dad into it, which is just kind of incredible. Like, I can't remember the last time I've had just like a really chill, enjoyable time listening to a podcast because I get really worked up over things like production and stuff like that. But like, it's gotten me to the point where I actually want to sit down and play Dungeons and Dragons with you guys because they just make it sound so goddamn cool.
So that's I actually might listen to that as well.
Yeah.
See, you guys are convincing me. Not even just the people out there, because I actually recently just went out and bought a Dungeons and Dragons starter set.
I saw.
I have not played Dungeons and Dragons since high school, and I had only played it a small handful of times. But recently got into this really weird started as a joke conversation with a bunch of friends of mine about how we were going to start playing in Dungeons and Dragons, and somehow the joke turned into a thing of, no, now we're going to actually have game night and play Dungeons and Dragons.
That's really cool, though.
So now I have to learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Because you needed a new hobby.
Because I don't have enough hobbies. You know, I was thinking about this yesterday, by the way, Dana. This is... this probably isn't going to make much sense to the people out there, but it doesn't really matter. And I think maybe one of the reasons I'm so stressed is because I have too many hobbies. I think I'm trying to do too many things. I think I've been learning Spanish. I've decided to pick up Dungeons and Dragons. I made 3 beers in the last 2 weeks.
Which involved some second-degree burns.
Yes, which did involve some second-degree burns. I'm organizing a charity event. Like, I think I might just be doing too many things.
You're living your life pretty hard.
Yeah.
Just like take 2 weeks, right? And just like read a damn book. Just like lay on your couch with your pets and like strum on a guitar and not even think about it. Just be.
I don't think that's how you do time off, though.
I don't. It isn't. It's really terrible. So I want to recommend that people go check out Spoon's new album, Hot Thoughts. Spoon has been putting out top-notch albums for God knows how long now. A series of Sneaks came out in 1997, I want to say, and they just rarely release a stinker. It always sounds like Spoon. They have a very distinctive sound, but there's always just enough change. And Hot Thoughts is kind of their weird, groovy, we decided to make an electronic album. And it's really, really top notch. The production on it is phenomenal. Britt Daniel, I hope that's his name. If it's not, I'm sorry that I screwed this up. Pretty sure it's Britt Daniel. Just writes fantastic melodies. So yeah, Spoon is awesome, and their new album is awesome, and you should check it out if you like, the pop music. And I don't mean pop as in like Britney Spears pop. I mean like, pop as in popular, like rock pop stuff. It's good times.
Are you saying I should listen to it if I like listening to music other people listen to?
If you like music.
If I like music. If you enjoy music.
If you enjoy music that has catchy melodies and well-played instruments and top-notch production value, and as opposed to listening to the grind of industrial machinery and the shrieking of animals being killed.
Would I like it if, at this point, the #1 most played artist on my phone is Kesha?
I mean, you might.
I'll take it. Sign me up.
The fact that Kesha is the most played artist on your phone really doesn't tell me anything. Most recently, I've been listening to a lot of the Migos album on repeat. Probably the most played artist on my phone is either Mastodon or Cameron. So don't look at me.
I don't know. I think there's some inferences to be made about who Terrence is as a person based off of that.
Mastodon, Migos, Spoon, and Cameron. That's what you got, guys. And I went on a rant about the Fragile.
You're a man who defies boxes.
Yes.
You don't fit neatly in anything, do you? That's why you live your life so hard. You just do everything.
Yep.
You're like living 3 lives at the same time.
He's a Renaissance man.
Exactly.
On Staten Island.
All right. I think we're done. Let's wrap this up, guys.
Can we get some bacon?
We can.
Hey, can we get some bacon in here, please?
Somebody bring us bacon while we wrap this up. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Thank you for watching, listening, for going to the site. As always, we want your feedback. We want your questions, your comments, complaints, whatever it is. You can send them to us at podcast@engadget.com. You can hit us up on Twitter. It's Engadget Podcast. You can also hit us up directly. I'm at Terrence O'Brien. Lots of E's, no A's.
I'm just Chris Velazco, Velazco, because that's tricky for some people.
And Dana Wollman.
I am just Dana Wollman on Twitter.
We are all so easy to find on the internet, guys.
Yes.
Super easy. So please, yes, and don't forget to subscribe in your podcast app of choice. I don't care if it's Stitcher, Pocket Cast, iTunes, whatever it is. Just go subscribe.
It should be Pocket Cast.
Leave us a rating if your podcast app of choice allows you to do that, because that will help people find our podcast, and we want people to listen. At least I do. I don't know about you guys.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, tune in next week. We'll be back with something else, I'm sure.